It's my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker. Scott Keogh is the Chief Executive Officer and President of Volkswagen Group of America. He's also the head of the Volkswagen brand in North America. He oversees all of the Volkswagen brand activities in the US, Mexico, and Canada, and the company's huge facility in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which employs thousands. He also leads engineering, purchasing, research, testing, and logistics activities across North America. Scott's history of overseeing strategic ventures into new vehicle segments and crucial product launches has never been more important as the industry brings electrified products from research and design to the marketplace. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Keogh, and I'm honored to be part of Autos 2050 on behalf of the Volkswagen Group of America. Like so many sectors of our economy, these are fascinating times for the automotive industry, defined by astonishing resilience, even as we navigate unprecedented disruption. And frankly, it's only the beginning. Over the next decade, we will undergo more transformation within our industry than we've experienced in the past 130 years. Arguably, since the blink of an eye in which we stabled the horse and buggy and redefined horsepower. To help understand what that transformation will take, let's go back to that very moment in time. When under the cloak of darkness, a war was fought right here on American soil that most of us have never heard of. It wasn't a war of military strength. It had nothing to do with politics or ideology. It was a war of ideas, fought by industry titans, armed with nothing more than the innovations they were convinced could change the world. They called it the War of the Currents. On one side was Thomas Edison. On the other, George Westinghouse. Caught in the middle, the electrification of America and the illumination of its future. Though he won the battle for the light bulb, Edison ultimately lost this far more important war. Westinghouse proved, with the help of a Serbian immigrant by the name of Tesla, that alternating current was superior when it came to transmitting the power needed to light those bulbs and pretty much every other electrical device we now take for granted. Using transformers to knock down high voltages, then safely distribute power to households across the country, AC could go the distance. Edison's direct current simply couldn't. As one historian put it quite well in a modern context, if Edison's idea had won, there would be a coal-burning power plant every 2 miles crisscrossing America. But key to the drama were two very public-facing and at least partially publicly funded ideas. The use of alternating current to illuminate nearly 100,000 incandescent light bulbs and the imaginations of almost 30 million visitors at Chicago's World Fair of 1893, and the installation of AC generators at Niagara Falls in 1895, which brought hydroelectric power to the masses. From the lights of Broadway to every borough of my beloved New York. As a history nerd, the War of the Currents has always fascinated me. As someone fortunate enough to be at the helm of a car company in America right now, though, it's a tale of equal parts caution and inspiration. It's easy to get distracted by the personalities involved. They have, of course, become mythical figures in American business and culture. But though the story began with them, countless others helped write its dramatic ending. Key to the narrative are the countless social and political leaders at the national, state, and even local levels who work behind the scenes to foster healthy competition and shape public opinion to make this mass adoption possible. Leaders like many of you watching here today. What happened in Chicago and in Niagara Falls was the result of private industry working lockstep with government entities to not only bring innovations to life, but to create moments in the marketplace where consumers could just see how life-changing these innovations were, and perhaps more importantly, believe that change was a good thing. I mentioned, it's estimated that almost 30 million people saw those twinkling lights at the 1893 World's Fair. That was over the course of 6 months and represented 1/4 of the entire US population at the time. They had read the articles. They had heard the stories. Now they had to see it for themselves. And just like that, they believed. They believed in American-made magic at its best. Of course, gone are the days when one company, let alone one name, can or should own any market. Or, in the case of the auto industry, the road ahead. It will take each and every one of us within this industry, icons and upstarts alike, to chart a new course and illuminate that road toward a cleaner, safer, and smarter future. And there is no greater market opportunity than electrification. For our part, Volkswagen has undoubtedly gone all in on EV development, committing more than $41 billion globally to accelerating our drive toward electrification and CO2 neutrality. At Stateside, I'm proud to say next year we'll begin assembly of our first electric vehicle down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we invested an additional $800 million to expand our existing footprint to create nearly 1,000 career-defining jobs in everything, from entirely new battery technology to traditional assembly. The ID4 is our opening salvo to bring electrification to millions, not just the millionaires. But it is just the tip of the spear. We are preparing to bring enough EVs to the market to increase our current annual sales mix of 6% to an anticipated 50% by the end of this decade. But we simply cannot do it alone. Moreover, we don't need to, because the American market is clearly charging up for change. Year to date, we've sold over 12,000 ID4s, a testament to the enthusiasm our 600 plus dealers had for its arrival and their commitment to embracing the change. Granted, it also helps that it has quickly become the #1 most profitable vehicle for our dealers, helping us collectively return to profitability in North America for the first time in decades. But there's a bigger story here. For starters, 90% of those sales are first-time EV buyers, and they're cross-shopping non-EV offerings from badges such as Toyota, Honda, and Ford. A look at broader market research reveals an even more staggering fact. Over 70% of American drivers, they are ready now to go electric. So, I for one welcome every headline announcing that our colleagues are joining the party, from General Motors to Lucid, racing toward 2050 and beyond. But like any great American road trip, we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. So we need you riding shotgun. Consumers are savvy enough to understand that EVs pay off in the long run. They know they can save thousands in fuel costs and maintenance over an EV's lifetime compared to a gas-powered vehicle. But between leaps in battery technology and increased competition, they also see prices falling year after year. So it's no surprise that so many Americans are ready to go electric. And this moment points to the opportunity before us, once again, as a nation. The EV market is only just starting to take shape. To ensure that market has its best chance to flourish, the private and public sectors need to rekindle that classic spirit of partnership to break down any and all barriers to EV adoption among American consumers. Automakers are already acting quickly to overhaul decades-old supply chains and even share cutting-edge technology to bring EVs and their benefits to the market. Some of these actions are in response to regulation. Most, however, are now by choice, because I can ensure the entire industry has shifted its thinking to not only doing what's good for business, but also what's good for the planet. Like AC/DC so long ago, the debate is over. A superior technology that can be cleaner, safer, and smarter is winning. But according to a report by energy research firm Bloomberg NEF, 2023 is the point when experts believe EVs will match the price of comparable gas-powered vehicles. So until then, the invisible hand needs to simultaneously keep just the right amount of pressure on the scale to tip the market in consumers' favor. To the point, regulating the automotive industry simply is not enough. The government can and should create as much incentive as possible for drivers to go electric, because incentives, without a doubt, work. The ID4, for example, has been selling so well here, partially because it's only $32,500 for customers who can take advantage of the federal tax credit, well below the $38,000 sticker price of an average new vehicle in 2020. Incentives like these will continue to enable the market to gain strength and find its footing. To be clear, they are not intended to be a long-term strategy. They are a short-term bridge to long-term economic growth, because these incentives don't only benefit consumers, They simultaneously cut greenhouse gas emissions on American roads while creating jobs in communities across this great nation. It's clear the Biden administration and congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle support the goal for increased electrification, but it's also clear that recent congressional efforts have incorrectly focused on incentives that favor some automakers over others, limiting consumer choice to a select few and potentially weakening the EV market. The EV tax credit proposal recently released by the House Ways and Means Committee artificially distorts the marketplace against companies like Volkswagen, discriminating against our nearly 4,000 employees in Tennessee, let alone those who are part of a supply chain linking us to states from coast to coast. Make no mistake, though we have German roots, after billions in investment and economic output, Volkswagen of America is very much an American company defined by proud Americans assembling quality American products, many of whom have fought to preserve the America they love. Policies that favor U.S. workers in one region over U.S. workers in another region are wholly unfair. Full stop. Federal incentives should be focused on building a strong, fair, and national EV market that accelerates national adoption, ensuring that this next chapter in electrification is once again written right here in the US of A. After all, from Norway to China, we've seen that rapid, widespread EV adoption happens when government works hand in glove with industry on a national scale to create enough runway for the EV market to take off. We all want to see the same benefits to our economies and our ecosystem others have already reaped in electrification. And with incentives that help put people in the driver's seat, we can create a homegrown EV market that is the envy of the entire world. So it's time to lead, not follow. American drivers want a great car at a great price. The question is, what kind of car do we want to build for them? We could let market forces dictate that, or for just a little while longer, we could level the playing field. Incentives and rebates have helped Americans make smarter purchases that in turn have made us a more efficient nation. Because it's everywhere, it's easy to overlook this little logo. Energy Star is, of course, the government-backed symbol for energy efficiency. Since 1992, it has helped American families and businesses save 5 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity, avoid more than $450 billion in energy cost, and achieve an astonishing 4 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas reductions. Over the lifetime of the program, every dollar the EPA has spent on Energy Star resulted in $350 in energy cost savings for American businesses and households because it made it easier to make better purchase decisions. Visit EnergyStar.gov and you can scroll through countless offers to lower the cost of everything from smart thermostats to commercial dishwashers. So, why not put an Energy Star on an ID4? Or at least apply the logic behind it. The simple truth is that unless they look at similar gas and electric vehicles and see similar prices, consumers will balk and the electric market will sputter at a time when it should be roaring to life. Albeit a quieter roar. Ladies and gentlemen, therein lies the opportunity. Together, we can prove taking the wheel is more than the obligation of a generation, it's the chance of a lifetime to conjure some American-made magic. Already, private-public partnerships are proving to be critical to electrification. ID4 owners have charged over 4 million kilowatt hours to travel 12 million miles, raving about the experience and evangelizing the benefits of going electric. And that is in large part thanks to an expanding charging infrastructure. And many of you know our wholly owned subsidiary, Electrify America, offers nearly 2,600 individual fast chargers across the United States. By the end of this year, that number will climb to 3,500 DC fast chargers at 800 stations in 45 states, with 2 cross-country routes and networks running up the length of both the East and the West Coast. By 2025, Electrify America plans to more than double those numbers, with more than 1,800 charging stations and 10,000 individual chargers. All in, Electrify America is investing $2 billion over 10 years in zero-emission vehicle infrastructure, education, and access. And those efforts will be bolstered by additional investments from the federal and state government to remedy the so-called range anxiety that stood as a barrier of entry for consumers for far too long. What's more, the pandemic and its resulting semiconductor shortage put a spotlight on our industry-wide need to domesticate the supply chain and minimize our exposure to global risk. Again, this is where we are already seeing big commitments from bipartisan leadership to address these fundamental vulnerabilities and opportunities throughout the American economy. In the aftermath of the current war, from the Windy City and the Empire State, public-private partnerships help spread electricity across America. Edison's light bulbs became omnipresent. Think about this. In 1881, those bulbs cost about $1, which is $23 in today's dollars. By 1910, the cost dropped to 17 cents. Illumination was no longer reserved for the parlors of the wealthy, it belonged to everyone. Private investment in innovation coupled with public investment in adoption made the difference. And then, Westinghouse's generators made days longer and nights shorter. Rural outposts were connected to the grid and reimagined through massive infrastructure projects from the Hoover Dam to the Tennessee Valley, which of course is why Volkswagen calls Chattanooga home today. Ironically, in its early years, the automotive industry was actually producing more vehicles powered by electricity than gasoline. So how did gas win? It wasn't just a battle between competing technologies, it wasn't market forces, it was politics without principle, with the most significant government policies creating at best unfair markets and at worst monopolies. A host of mechanisms with perhaps unforeseeable consequences, from land grants and government-backed bonds to tax deductions for drilling costs and public funding for oil and gas research, paved the road to this moment in time for our industry and our nation, a moment of environmental and economic urgency. But here we are, at a crossroads, with an entirely new horizon illuminated in the not-too-distant future. Research shows that the first 15 years of any new technology are critical and that government support is key to survival. Every utility and every industry that we now take for granted, from the telephone to the internet, thrived in that way. And frankly, the oil and gas industries have had more than enough time and support. E-mobility deserves it now. History has indeed proven just how powerful market incentives and infrastructure investments can be in changing the conversation and frankly the world. Volkswagen is grateful to be part of a new conversation. We are proud to be bringing e-mobility to Americans at scale. Again, building affordable EVs right here in America for the millions, not just the millionaires, because we believe it is time to democratize this revolutionary technology. From our headquarters here in Virginia, just miles from our nation's capital, to our plant in the heart of a southeastern manufacturing hub where EV investment is booming. We are well positioned with the ambition, the talent, and the industrial know-how needed for the next century of electrification. This time, though, it doesn't have to be a war. It's simply a matter of choosing to do this the right way that benefits all workers and all consumers because it's the right thing to do. And it's a choice we can make together.